Howdy! Welcome to Pioneer Bluffs. I'm Derrick Doty, and today I'd like to play a few tunes for you, tell some stories, and maybe even sing a song for you. You might be familiar with Pioneer Bluffs and its commitment to preserving Flint Hills ranching heritage. What you may not be familiar with is a story about traditional music that is connected to Pioneer Bluffs. And it's significant not only to the ranch, but to the Flint Hills and to Kansas as well. Let's begin with Henry Rogler and his part in the Flint Hills music traditions. Henry, born 1877, essentially made Pioneer Bluffs what you see and know today, with the 1915 barn, Sears and Roebuck house, and mile of stone fence along the highway. Family history tells us Henry was about 15 when he began playing fiddle. He sold subscriptions to the Youth's Companion magazine, and he earned points for each magazine sold. He used those points with an additional $4 to turn into the company, and they sent him a fiddle in return. This type of sales and reward system was not uncommon at all. This advertisement for ukulele banjo is part of my collection of ephemera, which comes from a Chase County source, probably around 1930. The Lancaster County Seed Company out of Pennsylvania would send you 24 packets of garden seed. You would sell those packets for 10 cents each and send the money to the company, which in return would send you a banjo with an instruction book. This was a great way for kids in particular to learn how to play an instrument they may otherwise not have been able to afford. When Henry's fiddle arrived, he jumped right in and started learning by ear. And it was said before long he learned over 100 hoedown tunes and was playing at barn dances around the county. In 1894, Henry enrolled at Kansas State College and began taking courses on entomology, grasses, and livestock. One of my favorite stories about Henry in his first day of livestock class, they were scoring herd bulls. And Henry had given the lowest possible score to one specimen. The rest of the class had ranked at the top of the bulls. Henry's instructor addressed him, said, "Mr. Rogler, why did you score this bull so low?" And Henry replied, "Well, because this bull is a steer." Henry excelled in academia, it seems, but he was also athletic. He did the broad jump and ran in track. In fact, he would practice running the half mile from his apartment to campus. And in his leisure time, you might have found him squirrel hunting in the woods south of campus, in what we know today as Aggieville. One more thing we learn about Henry in his time in college is that he played his violin in the school orchestra. So it would appear that although he learned to play by ear as a child, he must have picked up reading music at some point along the way. During his senior year, Henry met Maud Sobel, another Chase Countyan, and in 1901, after she had graduated, they were married and began building their life at Pioneer Bluffs. Family history says that Henry quit playing for dances around 1912, his growing family making it more difficult to travel and do the late nights at dances. However, music continued an important part of the Rogler home. His daughter Irene recalled him playing pieces like After the Ball and The Irish Washerwoman, and according to her, an endless number of square dance tunes. In a sales ledger from the furniture store in Cottonwood Falls, we find that Mrs. Rogler purchased a new piano in 1918. Daughter Helen, who learned on this very piano, would in fact go on to become a pretty accomplished pianist. In 1912, Joseph King moved to Matfield Green from Lead Hill, Arkansas. He worked for Henry Rogler for about 45 years, and Joe, like Henry, was a fiddler, and they were known to play together on occasion. June Talkington, also a fiddler of Matfield Green, recalled that Joe King played this tune that everyone was familiar with, but no one recalled the name of. And so June always called it Joe King's Schottish. I learned to play this tune from June, as did others, and when June passed in 2007, we continued calling it June's Schottish in remembrance of him. Now, we don't know if Joe King brought this tune with him from Arkansas, but it seems possible. Anyway, about a year ago, we found out what the name of the tune is. It's a Civil War era song called "The Captain with His Whiskers." Since we're giving a tip of the hat to cowboys and pioneers, I'd like to sing an old cowboy song for you. This one dates to at least 1930, when it was first recorded by Jimmy Davis, but it seems to have been pretty well known in this region, as well as the Ozarks, even up into the 1950s and 70s. It's called "The Cowboy's Home Sweet Home," having taken the familiar tune and set it to 3/4 time. Another name for this piece, which comes from an Arkansas source, is "Why I Left Old Kansas." The lyrics I'm going to sing for you come from a Chase County, Kansas source. They were found in a homemade scrapbook of cut-out newspaper clippings. We were lying on a prairie on Slaughter's range one night, with our heads upon our saddles and the fires burning bright. Some were telling stories and some were singing songs, while others were idly smoking as the hours rolled along. At last we fell to talking of distant friends so dear, when a boy raised up in his saddle and brushed away a tear. Oh, it's only a Kansas dugout I've left behind to roam. I'd give my pony and saddle to be at home, sweet home. We all asked him why he had left his home, if it was so dear to him. He looked the rough crowd over and said in a voice that was dim, "I fell in love with a neighbor girl, her cheeks were soft and white, but another feller loved her too, it ended in a fight. This feller, his name was Thomas Jones, we'd known each other from boys. We had rode each other's horses and shared each other's joys. Tom was tall and slender, his face was young and fair, his eyes were the color of heaven, he had dark and curly hair. Oh, how it makes me shudder when I think of that awful night, when Tom and I began fighting. I stuck him with my knife. I fell down on my knees and tried to stop the blood that from his side came flowing all in a crimson flood. And now whenever I sleep at night, I dream I hear him say, "Bob, old boy, you'll be sorry, I'll be gone before it's day." Now boys, you can see the reason why I'm compelled to roam, but I'd give my pony and saddle to be at home, sweet home. Thanks to Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, we tend to associate the guitar as the cowboy's instrument of choice. And we do see plenty of early cowboy singers who played guitar. One notable cowboy singer from Kansas was Roy Faulkner of Milford. Faulkner played on KFKB, Kansas First, Kansas Best radio station, operated by the notorious John Brinkley, Dr. Brinkley, the Goatland doctor, who also ran for governor in 1930. Most photographs of Roy show him with a guitar or resonator guitar, but he also played the harmonica, fiddle, and even the saw. There's a lot we can learn looking at photographs. And while there may not be a lot of early photographs of musicians in Kansas, the few that we do have are interesting. Here we have a wonderful image thought to be taken sometime in the 1880s or 90s at Turkey Track Ranch near Protection, Kansas. We presume these men are cowboys, at least the one with the cello is certainly attired right, with tall riding boots and spurs. It is interesting to note the instrumentation of this cowboy band: cello, harmonica, and guitar. The harmonica makes a good lead or melody instrument. It's small enough you can take it anywhere. And if you've ever listened to old 78 records from the 1930s, sometimes you'll find harmonica playing lead or accompanying a fiddle, and sometimes it's really difficult to distinguish between the two instruments. The guitar, of course, makes an excellent rhythm and bass instrument, but the cello really adds the bass. If you look closely at this cello, you will see it only has 3 strings instead of 4. It is not uncommon at all to see 3-string cellos in photos of old-time string bands. This phenomenon has puzzled traditional musicians for years, but the most practical explanation is cello strings were not cheap nor readily available, so if one broke, you probably weren't in a hurry to replace it. The banjo, I feel, is another overlooked instrument of the cowboy. There is evidence of banjo playing in Kansas music traditions. One of them comes from right here at Pioneer Bluffs. Irene Rogler, in writing of her childhood, mentions Brother George playing the banjo and singing a dozen verses of It Ain't Gonna Rain No More. It doesn't appear that George kept with it into adulthood. His daughters have no memory of him playing an instrument, but they do recall that he sang well in church. To help us get a better idea of what banjo players may have been playing in early times in Kansas, we have to look at the formal sources. S.S. Stewart was printing out guitar and banjo journals through the 1880s and 90s, and these journals were widely distributed across the nation. In them you would find arrangements for solo banjo pieces, or maybe duets for 2 banjos, or a banjo and a piano, or a guitar and mandolin. This next piece I'd like to play for you comes from an 1886 S.S. Stewart journal. You will no doubt recognize it as the ever-popular Home Sweet Home. Now I'd like to sing a song for you, one I wrote a while back about my wife's ancestors. This is about an event that took place west of here at a place called Homestead. This also serves to show how in traditional music tunes are borrowed. This melody comes from a song, Joe Bowers, which predates the Civil War. After the war, the melody was used for a song, Oh, I'm a Good Old Rebel. I have borrowed the melody now to tell the story of the Homestead Cyclone. Out on the Flint Hills prairie in 1892, at a place called Homestead, not far from Wandsview. It was on a Thursday evening, March the 31st. With very little warning, a Kansas cyclone burst. The hour was near 11, the wind with fury blew. Theodore, Saloma, and little Conrad too, all the Blosser family sleeping past the hilltop, he saw the damage done. The house no longer standing was strewn for miles around. The bodies of his family lie cold upon the ground. The mattress of the Blosser bed, or so the legends say, was found way out on Middle Creek, near 15 miles away. It landed in the road right in front of Old Elk School. The worst of storm they'd ever seen, never one so cruel. Before that day was over, into town John went. Stepped into the dry goods and there his money spent. Went home with a fine instrument to warn a coming squall. John Holdeman's barometer still hangs upon the wall. Now for the rest of the story. The barometer of John Holdeman has been passed down in the family through the years, along with the story. And that very barometer hangs on the wall in the home of his great-grandson, Loren Ratzloff. I'm glad you joined me for this little musical interlude into our past, and hope you enjoyed it. Maybe it inspired you to dig into your own history, or maybe pick up an instrument and become part of the music tradition. Continue playing the tunes, singing the songs, and telling the stories.